Hi there, Randy Green here. I want to give a little bit of a talk regarding animals because I have touched ground with it a couple of times and it's not something I am going to work with as far as I know, you never say never, in my lifetime. But I've touched ground with it several times, and background is, of course, I grew up with cats. I have had dogs. You have these domesticated animals, and then you have the animals that live in a farm, and then you have the wild animals. So there are kind of three different groups of animals that are around you. And I'm here talking about mammals, because if we talk about reptiles and avians and bugs, things are a little bit different there, but in essence, not much. There are different classifications with these different types of animals that are on our planet. So let's talk about the mammal population. I touched ground with the fact that they were technically the bugs and the reptiles and the avians are part of the middle domains as well. So let's just make that clear totally, utterly, completely. They used to be human races, similar to us, but in a different energetic setting, in a different type of reality that were surrounded the middle domain, which is where we are kind of, it's a middle domain, it's a ring that is around the core domain where we are. And when I hear talk about the core domain, I'm not talking about the core domain as in the core facilities being linked up to, which is technically in the sixth density. So this is not what I'm talking about. Again, kind of what we have in our physical world, in our planet. And this is again where eventually we will grow out of the perception of our planet as just this kind of round ball in space run by gravity and weird spatial powers and orbital mechanics. That is kind of an organic form, not because our planet has a consciousness. The consciousness of our planet is humanity. So we are the consciousness of the planet. So we are the one that drives the planet and how it works. Our consciousness is what creates the collective consciousness field that is running that big planet, which we call Earth. Just make that perfectly clear. The planet itself has core facilities which are in other dimensions, use that expression, or in other densities, which I prefer because that kind of goes with the progression worlds, where dimensions is kind of where the regressed worlds. So these are both there. Why do I make that distinction? Because the dimensions are kind of technologically driven, most of them holographically, artificially created and driven by technology, whereas the density energies are also holographic, but they're driven by consciousness. A huge difference there. So again, distinction levels. I'm trying to develop your brain to be able to conceptualize things in different patterns, in different layers, in different perspectives. Because high awareness goes with being able to juggle with different levels of consciousness, different levels of perspectives. Are you looking at reality from a human perspective? Are you looking on reality from a planetary perspective? Are you looking at it from electromagnetic energy, which when using the brain synapses in their lower level order? Or are you using your higher order capacities, which goes into densities? Are you going into the progressive worlds where you use the densities that are run by your heart field? Or are you using the regressed energies that goes with your base field and your mind field, but in a regressed manner that goes with the different technologies you got implemented into your energy field? So again, which level of perception are we working with here? Are we working with the perception levels of reality before the timeline event, or under the timeline event, or after the timeline event? And that goes with animals as well. In ancient times, before the timeline event, they were part of realities that were surrounding the middle, let's call it the middle reality that we were having in the sixth density. Then there were reality fields like petals in a flower. Our world, our planet, which was not a round planet at the time, was the center reality where the synergy of all the different races would play in. And then we had the adjacent realities which extended out like petals. And there were 5 petals around our planet because it was a 6th density planet, and hence it had 5 petals working with the different, we could call density 1 to 5, that was similar to the what would build up to the 6th density. But when you say, what was the first density then? Was it just microbial life forms like little algae or whatever? No, the first density would go back with the 1-7 pillar, which were going back to the first colonies we had here a long time ago, and the life forms and what we learned there, how we learned to administer a physical form. That would be the first density. The second density, you would learn how to work with developing your energy system and so forth. The third would be planetary understanding. The fourth would be kind of where you expand into the solar system, and the fifth would be where you expand into the galaxy. So this was kind of that's how advanced we were, literally with our consciousness. So everything we're doing here is backwards. We're kind of regressing more and more in our thought forms the more we use mechanical stuff to understand things. Anyways, I'm talking a lot about that in whole philosophy, where I take a lot of time to explain this, because I've been saying it in little drips here and there over the last God knows how many years I've been making videos. So now it's time to round it all up in a book where you can read it and contemplate on it, and then develop your ideas, your thought patterns from where you want to progress and from where you want to develop yourself, because this is a buffet of ideas we're working with here. But you need to learn the dynamics of the brain, the dynamics of thinking, and the dynamics of processing energy to do it correctly. So when we go into the whole animal kind of thing, they were part of these surrounding worlds. But these surrounding worlds had different levels as well. And when I say the middle domain, that is typically what I will refer to in the fourth density. And then you said, well, the fourth density, wasn't that working with the kind of solar system and working with the energy systems of the solar system? And yes, you're totally correct. So I'm still having, when I'm trying to conceptualize this and explain this, there are gaps and things that don't fit in together. My energy patterns regarding these things have not been developed yet, but that is what I will try to get my grip on in the advanced psychology, where I begin to put it into a big pattern where I will try to remember as much as possible and then conceptualize it and then see what we can use of it. But going back to the animals, so the first thing you need to understand is that the animals used to be humans. There are different types of humans in the fourth density. Some of them were from the third density, some of them were from the second density, and some of them were from the first density, all depending on what they were. Now, when we talk about the mammals, because these are the ones I want to point our direction at, because when we talk about bugs that are there, they are primarily electromagnetic energy. You can mind control them through your brain waves. I've been doing that my entire life. That's how I get these bugs out of my house. Unless they don't want to go and they want me to release them off their organic form, I help them with that little function. And then I erase their signature in the library, because some of the bugs that are here used to be humans as well, but they have now downsized into becoming a spider or becoming something that is less functional in terms of, well, if you used to be a human, you don't have much purpose and brain capacity left as a spider. Your organic form is a little bit kind of not fitting so well with the purpose you had here. So many of these are actually asking me, okay, finish me off so I can go back, recycle, and then get a new organic form in whatever system I'm kind of aligned with the capacity that is left in my template in the library, and it will be pulled from the racial library and transferred to a system where it can begin anew within the progressive systems. So this is kind of the freeing work of the releasing work. And you need to get out your organic form to do so. So it's not that killing is a good thing. That's not what I'm saying. And it's not to think, because that's kind of a little bit part of the esoteric teachings, that eating animals and killing animals were kind of okay because that freed them of their organic form. And if you honored the life that were there and you honored the animal and all these kind of ideas that is going around allowing you to kill animals, then it would free them and release them and all these kind of things. But this is not how it works, because a kill is always a kill. And you kind of have to have a special license to kill to be allowed to do that without getting transgression from it. Transgression is always when you go against the standards of the system you live in, when you go against the original progression purposes. So when you are a cow, let's just use that one, because I got a lot of farmland around me, and I got cows when I'm out walking. And unfortunately, these cows, they are just out in the field all summer. They don't have much human contact, and their brain capacity is 0 to none. Unfortunately, it's just organic brain that does the instinctual level because it has not been developed. But all of you who have animals in your own home, you know how much you affect your animals. You know how smart they can be, how energetically reading they are. They are totally on top with how you feel emotionally. They will do whatever they can to comfort you. They will do whatever they can to make you happy. And they will do whatever they can to make you feel good, because that's kind of the domesticated animals. That's what they are doing. And again, unfortunately, again, this is where you need to be able to read energy and to see what your animal actually is. You need to figure out what soul your cat or dog has, because that determines its behavior. Because a feline used to be a race. There were the feline races that goes back to Vega. It did regress though, but it is still part of a human race. As well as the canines. They are dogs. The Sirius system are what we call the dog star. Why is it called that? Even there was an Egyptian goddess called Sothar, I think was her name. She was the female deity of the Sirian system. So just throwing that one in, so you also know that Sirius actually had a female goddess in Egypt. So and she had a 5-pointed star above her head, again signifying where she came from, as well as Inanna in Sumeria and that line of thought had an 8-pointed star. And these kind of things. So they're the stars that were with these deities, which were literally star people, let's call them that, from other systems coming here. It signified where they came from, what level, what density, what were they here to do, what were they here to work with, what were they here to try and create. And we're talking before 12,500 BC. Or sometimes I say 12,500 years ago, all depending on a little bit how I put this. It is 12,500 BCE, literally. That's the date. It's not years ago. That would be, if we add up, it would be 14,500 or so years ago. So this is again where when I talk, I'm not going into the nitty-gritty details, and this is why I'm catching up on this one. So it's don't get stuck with where I say things that are incoherent. Get stuck with what I mean, the idea of what I'm presenting. Don't get lost in the details. That goes with, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? Don't get lost in the details, because you will lose the bigger picture. And this is the bigger picture, the dynamics, the mechanics. So we're having different steps of the evolution in animals. And no, I don't support the esoteric teachings. These are Syrian teachings, the majority of them, that goes with the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom and these kind of things. And animals are supposed to turn into humans at one point, and they are to be around humans to turn into humans. I don't agree with that one. On the contrary, because for me, and this is I always known that, and I got it very, very strongly. Remember it very strongly while working in Australia, because Australia has got so many different life forms, and they are so smart in Australia. The animals in Australia, the wild animals, they are fucking clever. Seriously. I have told this story before, but I'm going to put a little history there to put some background information on the work with animals. For instance, spiders in Australia. I have a spiders in Australia is kind of a big thing, because spiders control Australia, literally, among the other bugs and the reptiles, whatever's going on there. But the spiders have, when I was living in Bayview, there were so many spiders. I really got to learn spiders. And they are immensely clever. And they're I got this one from Coogee, which is another city in New South Wales, the first city I lived in. And I was in the kitchen talking to one of the ones I was living with, and she was just standing there, and she was standing one end of the kitchen, I was standing the other end of the kitchen. And from beneath the fridge came the refrigerator, came one of these big huntsmen, one of these big fucking spiders. Not a full-blown huntsman, but similar kind of, I don't even know if they're called huntsmen. They got all these, so I should look it up. The one that is kind of size of a hand, a little bit of a child's hand, that size. And it came crawling out, and I spotted it right away, and I was totally calm. Because when you live in Australia, you have to get used to the bugs. You can't be afraid of them because they're everywhere. So I was just looking at it, and it looked at me. I'm telling you, it looked at me. It literally turned its little spider body, not little child's hand, and it looked at me with its spider eyes. And I connected. And we had a total alignment here. I'll leave you alone, you leave me alone. And it was just going to wander across the kitchen floor onto the stove in the other end. But the girl in the other end of the kitchen at the stove, she was afraid of spiders. She saw the spider, or she just got, stirred up or frightened, or scared or whatever. She was talking about something else. She suddenly saw the spider, and she responded with primal fear. And the spider, instead of just kind of turning around and crawling under the fridge, which you would say would be if they were afraid of you, that's what spiders do in Denmark. They flee from you. They run away. If they see you, they run into their little holes and their little caves and their little hidings. But in Australia, no, they do things differently down there. Spiders in Australia do things differently. It looked at her and she responded with fear, and spiders are all about fear. So she amplified it, and it got stirred up. And it responded with the same amount of fear, and then it just ran towards her, literally attacking her. It fucking attacked her, and she was just all kind of whee! And up on the kitchen table. And yeah, I had to kill it. Sorry, I had to kill it. I had to do that, and I cleaned it up, and I released it, and I did whatever I needed to do. But it attacked. And when things are attacking you, there is a kind of, we'll just leave it at that. But it did. So that's, and I'm kind of laughing about it because it was one of these situations where you just know that reality is so bigger than you think. And all the time I was in Bayview. Bayview is, because of the trees, there are cicadas, and there are spiders all over the place. All over the place. So when I was out walking, aside from the cicadas peeing on me all the time and coming home with cicada pee, seriously, pissing off their territory and hitting me with their golden rain while I was out walking. Not okay. Not okay. So, but cicadas are a weird kind of creature as well. So there's a lot of these weird creatures that are hive mind creatures. Or when I lived in Warrierwood was close to the wetlands. Warrierwood was all about toads. And they're singing, the toads singing their song, going like roar, roar, roar all the time. Or bats, yuck, these big 50 centimeters or more bats. They have their own bat queen. I'm not kidding. They had their own bat queen, energetically speaking, an underworld creature that were running them. They always came out at 6 o'clock. Always. So this, again, with including reptiles. So the animals in your area defines who's running it. Whose territory is it? Who are you living amongst? You think you're in control of things. In Australia, the humans, they are puppets for these animals. I'm telling you, they are. And it's amazing. It is amazing how a whole reality field has been organized in humans thinking they're on top of the pyramid, when in fact, they are literally the bottom of it. I had so many conversations with the middle domain humans down there who were attached to these animals. And in Australia, they go in and out of them. They don't shapeshift anymore. They're kind of stuck in their more energetic state in the middle domains. They can't really take on physical form. In the old days, they could wander into this reality, and they could come in as a horse, or they could come in as a lion, or whatever. That's why we had the very big lions, the very big horses, and these kind of things, which you kind of see depicted as mythological creatures, or you see them depicted with the gods in, for instance, Sumerian mythology. mythology. It goes with the different animals that were connected to the gods as well. Every god in the old pantheons, they had their own signature animal. For instance, Anu had his bull, Inanna had the bull as well. But there was also Inanna depicted standing upon a lion. And this is very interesting because whenever I see that, I feel pissed off. Because where I come from, we have a lot of connections to lions. I'm not going to go deeper into that one. But that is kind of her showing her mastery over that energy, that signature animal. So animals and the humans that used to be in animals, now they're just going in and out of it. And they are very much, the humans in the middle domain are very much what you would call pure energetic as it is now. That's the way they have been forced to stay as they are without regressing. But they can't take on an organic form anymore. So they use animals and go in and out of this. And sometimes they use the avians to do that. Avians are brilliant carriers of a walk-in. So are cats, by the way. And dogs are so easy to possess because they are so domesticated that they don't even know what's going on. When I went to my hairdresser, so I'm jumping around the stories here. Whenever I went to my hairdresser, she always had her dog with her. And that dog, whenever I was coming, everybody knows I was coming, everybody knows what I can do. So someone was always possessing that poor dog. And it had so much of a hassle with that soul that was possessing it from the holographic worlds where people are literally unable to reconnect to an organic form. They're kind of stuck in the holographic worlds, which goes with what you could kind of say, well, is that the afterlife? All depending on, no, there are the astral plane, which are the distortion planes where you have the souls and the ghosts, the shells of humans, and all these kind of different layers, again, which you will learn if you truly learn to work with energy. You will learn to see that the holographic levels are 5th dimension, and these are the shells that come from the holographic technologies and the misuse of genetics, which eventually prevents the 5th dimensional races to be able to take on an organic form. It's all a matter of how the dynamics work in systems where you are not honoring life correctly. So with the avians as well, I had this funny little experience on my Randy Green profile on Facebook. I got this little of 2 cockatoos that are clearing each other, washing each other. And one of them, he always came there. And he was a funny little thing because he was the one that came first, and you could communicate with him. He was very smart, and he was very gentle. And he had this very nice vibration to him, so you kind of felt, yeah, I want to feed this one. I want to do this. He's the nice one. And he came first. And then when he got the food, the rest of the group came in, and they were bullies. They were literally bullies, but they were smart. Again, I'm telling you, Australia's animals, they're so smart. They knew, send in the nice guy first. And then people will kind of, oh, he's cute, I can communicate with him. And he would talk back to you. He would literally respond. He was a wild bird, but he was so used to being fed and being around humans. So he had learned how to do that thing. And he would get the food, and then the bullies would come and they would push him away. So this is the funny thing with him, because I was often sitting out there on the balcony and observing him and talking to him and getting to know him, because he was very quick on the telepathic contact. Not that he gave me any information, but he responded, he received well. So one of the things that he had was that he was a very slow eater. He must have had something with his beacon, because he was, or his beak, because he was, it was difficult for him to chew the seeds, where the others, they would do it in no time and it would be gone. He would take an enormous amount of time. So in terms of where were he on the food chain and how would he survive this, he had got this role of pulling the food out. The others would come and eat whatever they could, and then he would stay behind and eat his little portion, which I figured out to give him so he could have that. And then I talked to the bullies and said, you know what, you've done your job here. You can eat what I give you in another portion over there. So I was talking to these birds and getting to know them. And the more I talked to this nice bird, the funny thing happened that his energy system actually activated. And it activated and it began pulling from my heart field, which was unfortunate. But it dawned on me that working with animals that are around us, we can do a kind of transfer of energy to their energy systems, and by that beginning to work with them to develop them as well. Them being around, they don't even have to live with us, just them coming. The more you connect to an animal, the more it will return, because animals, most of them, they are kind of very kind beings. So aside from the bullies, and there were the rainbow parrots as well, where there were two of them. They were really nasty bullies, seriously. Very nasty, very demanding. They did not have a nice personality. Just putting it in there as well. And I had to literally, if I were to feed them, I had to say no, and I could talk to them, and they understood. And one of them actually had a psychological talk about treating others in the way it was supposed to, and it did change his behavior. It's possible to work with the animals again. They're not some weird different creature or species that are unconnected to us. Not at all. They're made of the same DNA composition as we are, and energetic and soul-wise and consciousnessly speaking, they are from the same origin as we are. They have just turned into a different type of evolution due to things that were done to them. As we have been downsized in our state, they have been downsized into an animal form. So when you work with, and again, when you do this work, again with the cats, even though I grew up with cats and I have a very, very fine relationship with cats, and they understand me and I understand them, and I've communicated with them my entire life, not in a kind of human way of communicating, because animals communicate in a different way. They don't use words. They can learn to understand commands. Stop, go, come, these kind of things. Simple commands. Of course, that's language. And we've seen with gorillas and chimpanzees that learn sign language, they have the capacity, the brain capacity to understand abstract language, sounds, as in kind of sound has a meaning. But that meaning goes with training. And training is not, you get a little goodie thing here whenever you do as I want you to do, because I never gave my dogs, and I had 2 dogs, I never gave them any goodies. Not at all. I chose an easy species with the dogs. I chose what you call a King Charles Spaniel, and they are very domesticated, and they are so observant of you. They are an animal species that literally resemble cats in many ways, and they are very, very eager to be part of you. I had to get accustomed to having a dog around my legs all the time. That's the King Charles Spaniel or the Cavalier. It always wants to be around you. It's around your legs all the time. So you have to be mindful not falling over the poor dog. And my dogs, especially the second one, because I had some little issues with learning the dog mentality with the first one. Unfortunately, she died at an age of 4. Due to osteoporosis in the hips. I don't know what it's called in English, but she died from that one, unfortunately. So the second one, I had learned my lessons about how to deal with an animal. And this little thing, we got home, we picked her up in a kennel in Jutland, and she was hiding, and she was not an alpha dog, not at all. She was literally a very, very scared underdog. And she had issues. She had kind of only been used to be in a very little environment, little cage square. She was afraid of big rooms. She was afraid of everything. So I had to, how do I work with this little thing? Because she's afraid of everything, and I need her to be in the wild. I need her to be a good dog. And I had no doubt in my mind that I could that. And it was not about goodies, and it was not about, I'm doing this by giving you commands of going to dog schools and put you out around other dogs or whatever. No, I listened to my organic form, my body. And my body told me right away, and Cavaliers, they love that. Sleep with it. I slept with my dog. If you have a Cavalier or King Charles Spaniel, you have to sleep with it. It has to sleep in your bed. That's how it goes. So I slept with it, and she slept in my armpit, and she slept across my neck, when she was little, because that's what little doggies do when they sleep on their mom. They sleep across the neck. She did the same thing with me. I slept with the dog across my neck. And I created a little safe space to begin with, where I slept with her in that safe space. So she could walk from the mattress and go to the end and pee there, and then I would have to clean it up and come back. And eventually I told her I'm living in a condo, so going out at nighttime was not really going down the stairs and out. So I just learned her to pee on the balcony, and then I cleaned it up the day after, so there was no remnants or smells or anything out there. And eventually she got clean and all these kind of things. But the way I bonded with her was literally just being in physical contact, the same way I bonded with my child. Physical contact is the strongest bonding mechanism that exists. And giving the safeness of physical contact, creating a space of energy and security around an animal, is the best way to be around your animal. And that is also a way how you get in alignment, energetically speaking, by sleeping together. That's a very strong bonder. And that little thing, I taught her slowly but surely that this was a safe world. I put a lot of energy into her. I communicated with her. I took her up. I took care of her. I made sure she understood that I was on top of this one. She could be safe with me. There was nothing threatening her. And I kind of did the whole thing that if something came and she was afraid of it, I would take the time afterwards to calm her down, because she would get all woo, like a little baby, like a child, and her nervous system would go off. So it took the time to calm her nervous system down and literally make her feel comfortable, knowing this is a safe world. It's okay. This is just something different. Or if she spotted something she couldn't detect what was, for instance, my teapot. She was afraid of my teapot. So I had to put my teapot on the floor so she could walk towards it slowly from side to side. They kind of go from sideways to something they don't know, not looking directly at it, and thinking and smelling. And what was that little thing? And I could see her little brain going totally off until she got close to it. And I encouraged her, yes, do that. Go close. You can do that. It's not scary. Come on, you can do it. And she did it. And she figured out, oh, it's nothing. And then she just walked away, and there was no issue with it at all. Which is so funny, by the way, because I'm sometimes looking after my daughter's cat. And when he came here, he was afraid of the teapot as well. A cat. He was afraid. He'd never seen anything before similar to that. So I did the same thing. And to talk about my daughter's cat, he is a what do you call it, Persian? Is that what you call it? Long-haired ones, and he's got his own personality. He's adorable as well. He's very kind, and he has his own ways of doing things, and he has this little streak of insecurity as well, and he needs to find his own rhythm and pace. And when I look after him, he stays with me for a couple of days. The first day, he's just kind of just leave me alone, and then he comes to you, and he knows I respect his space. So our dynamic develops through that. So it's all a matter of how you round your animals. They're not to do your bidding. They're a life form. You respect that life form. You learn about that life form as you would with any human. And yes, unfortunately, we have to put a collar on our dog and walk with them. But we also know that if you walk with your dog without a collar on from their very young age, they will learn to come to you without a collar. But our society is a little bit kind of, you put it on and the leash, because that's kind of makes other people feel safe. But it's all about how are you around your dog? How are you around your cat? Because your animal will reflect your emotional state. And if you're insecure around your animals will be insecure. Same with a child. Because technically a dog and a cat is like a 3-year-old child. You can mature it to become smarter than that. But that's kind of their natural setting. That's kind of where the natural progression stops, if you don't really put effort into it. So when we talk about the domesticated animals, they kind of already got it in their DNA to respond to humans. So when we talk about cows and animals in our farms or wild animals, they will have to get used to you, the dog whisperer, the cow whisperer, the bird whisperer, the bug whisperer, whatever. They need to get accustomed to being around humans again and trust humans. Because the way we treat them is embedded into their collective consciousness. So no wonder they keep distance to us. I would do the same. So there has to be a level of trust again. And when I suggested the work on a little farm, let's call it, farm would be the wrong, because that kind of involves having animals and eat them and these kind of things. That's not what I'm agitated for, or trying to make do here. But literally kind of having people who have buy a house with a big ground or whatever, learn how to take care of these animals so it's done the proper way, what they need, their food, all these kind of things. So you're educated into taking good care of an animal and what it needs and all these kind of things, as you have educated yourself to take good care of yourself. And then the goal with this is to learn to work with, let's just use cattle again, because sheep are quite easy. They're quite smart actually, and they are so funny. They're so cute when the little lambs, they are so cheeky. Oh, you should observe that. That really brings joy to the heart. They are so cheeky. I observed 2 smaller lambs and their little older brother or sister, I couldn't see. And they were teasing, let's just say it to her. They were teasing her. They were bullying her for fun, but it was done in a kind way. And I could see the older lamb that was a little bit bigger. She enjoyed it. It was a fun game. They were playing with each other, literally. And animals play with each other. It's just a matter of us observing it again, and we will see how similar we are, because we are technically built out of the same DNA. So there's not this huge difference. Not at all. So when we do this, you have your little setting and you have your the cows or whatever you're having. What would the function be of such a settlement, which I think would be a brilliant idea, because someone needs to take it up and work with these animals. Again, first and foremost, because there's a transformational work in it. There are 2 outcomes for animals on our planet. One is that they just go into the extinction and have a natural weed out. And then later on, as everything resets, some 5,000 years into the future or something, whatever, there will be reborn into an original middle domain organic form, and then they will continue their life from there. So that is kind of taken care of. But we could also do it the other way, and that goes with us as well. That's what I'm saying with a few base program, do that, because then the recycle dynamics will kick in at some point. The true ones, not the samsara, not the false reincarnation cycle. But the returning everything to their correct full position, their correct order, their correct balance, their correct harmony, because this is what the female consciousness is about. And it is a system to things. So everything will be on the right shelf, and that's the process we're going into. So if you do choose to work with animals, the first step is to learn to understand the animals. What is a cow? How is it built? How does it work? That's the anatomy of it. Similar as you need to learn to work your own organic form. And what does it need to eat to function the best way possible, to make its brain work correctly again? Because that's also why I'm telling you have to be a herbivore, because that's the only way you get your brain to work correctly again. Your heart field can't expand if you're eating dead animals. You have to eat plant-based food, because that gives the highest level of energy, and that has no killing in it. The energy signature of it is purer. So it's all about purity as the first thing. It's all about transformation of energy to its highest potentials. So when we work with the animals around us, that could be a creational project that you take on to yourself. It would be first to create the organic form so it can do what it needs to do. And to get there, you need to have done it on yourself. As I said, there was this kind of weird transfer between me and the bird. And why was that even possible? Because I clearly have connections to Egypt, and I have connections to Mars. I have memories of being on Mars, and I have part of my energy system that runs on avian genetics. So I knew this thing. Okay, I knew this thing. I have been part of the middle domains as well. So I have that in my energy system. So I can correspond with it. And that's why I can communicate with them, because I have the correct genetics. So the animals we have around us have to have similarity in genetics for us to be able to communicate with them. And as I said, I do have a little bit of lion thing going on. So cats have always been very easy to me, even though cats are felines and lions are something else. I can't remember what it's called, but they're technically 2 different lineages of DNA. So with that, taking good care of the cow, making it feel safe, going into its animal instincts, learning to work with that. What does it have and where do you need to transform it into? And this is again when we talk about humans, which is also some part of work I would love to do at some point when there's not so much hidden things in humans. Let's put it that way. Animals are less contaminated. They are less polluted with weird stuff. So, but lo and behold, if you begin working with animals and developing them, things will quickly surface from the underworld and attach to the animals, unfortunately, and then you will have to learn to clear that things out, but that's doable. So once that is done and you understand, okay, what do I need to develop the cow into? Because you can't make a cow into a lion. That's not the purpose. A cow is a cow. It's engineered as a cow. It functions as a cow. The DNA is engineered. The template is cow. So it has a specific purpose. So what would the purpose be of working with a cow? Because you're not going to utilize it. You're not going to drink its milk. You're not going to utilize it at all. No, you would do this because you understand that there is something that's called collective consciousness fields. And you would do that because you know these animals used to be part of a civilization. And you would do that because working with cow genetics would help you working with your mammal genetics. So developing cows are the same as developing levels in yourself. It's always a correspondence between what you work with and what you are. And developing something outside of yourself is also developing you. So when I say you can't progress other people, you can't, because people are a different race, different species, and free will apply there. They also apply the free will with animals. But animals are easier to work with in that manner that they are purer and less, they haven't reincarnated so many times. So they have less baggage. There are fewer previous lives to deal with. Because technically animals do not have their full template. They don't have their full soul unless they are one of these animals, and that typically goes with dogs, cats, and horses. They have been used extensively as imprisonment bodies for middle domain humans, unfortunately. That's also why horses are so clever, because technically their human soul is stuck there. And as well as you could say, kind of cows are actually, if they were allowed to use their brain capacity, they would be smarter. The question is, how much of a full soul is there in a cow? And to be honest, I don't actually know. I'm not going to touch ground with horses because that's a whole other affair, and there's a lot of dynamics regarding horses that goes into literally a whole lineage of humans that comes from a specific civilization, which I can't remember, but all of these were literally cursed and put into horse bodies. So these are some of the things that when we work with this, we need to spot our animal. We need to spot how much of a soul is left there. Is it just a fragment, or is it a full composition? But if it is a fragment, we know the holographic features means that if there's just a fragment, it can be developed into a wholeness. Because every fragment holds the DNA and the composition and the code sheet and the information of where it came from. The information is just there in one genetic. And that goes as well with the human body, which can be restored to its original composition if only we could get that one fragment of viable genetics to go in and begin activating the human cells and begin pinging off all of these, the mitochondria that shouldn't be there, making the cell work in its correct ways it was supposed to work as a 6-layered cellular structure. I'm working on all of this and getting these systems, trying to conceptualize it, and again remember how it was so we can begin returning it. Because it's all a matter of consciousness. If you know how it works, you can also change it. It's information systems. So when we talk about cows, what would be the purpose of developing cows? Well, technically, probably not much. There's not much future lineage for a cow. It doesn't reincarnate. It doesn't really have any function other, unfortunately, than producing genetics. And that's what they have been made for. And humans use them to produce antibiotics and all of these, or eat them and all these horrible things. But cow DNA is part of a race that doesn't exist anymore as well. It is part of our racial memories. It's part of the library. And whatever is stuck in a cow body and whatever is stuck in that organic form needs to be released, or at least erased. So I might at some point will have to work with cows. Just 1 or 2 would be sufficient, because then I can delete that from the library and I put a task on myself. Another one of the things I need to do. So this is why it's good I'm having this conversation with you, my listeners out there, because then I'm airing my ideas of what needs to be done. And then that one I need to do as well, because that's part of some human projects that failed. The race is gone, it's extinct, but there's still remnants of the DNA in these different animal forms, and there's still things attached to them. They're still got a symbolic link up, which I can see every time I see a cow. I see this big sphere symbol that's above them. They are still being utilized for specific types of technologies and so forth, and we participate in that by eating them, and all these kind of extra reasons why you should let go of that. You don't participate in that machinery. Low participation. So there are this level of work with, and then there are the levels of work with your domesticated animals. How far can you push them? Do they have an actual soul? Is that soul supposed to be there? Is that soul part of your cat because it's got cursed and put into a cat body? Or is it actually a human that used to be a feline? That would define how you're working with your cat. Because if it is a cursed soul that is stuck through magic in a cat body and has been reborn as a cat over and over and over again and never allowed to move beyond that, there will be a lot of fear, there will be a lot of comfort zone, and all the things we see in humans as well. And for that soul to be released, because that soul has not got its original form anymore. So there will be a resistance for that developmental work. Your cat will not want you to progress it, because if it has a cursed soul in it, that soul has no place to go other than being dispersed and returned to the library. So that soul will not be eager to do so, and your cat will fight you, literally, energetically, in all the ways it can. Especially if it goes back to Egypt and it goes through with some really old shit Egyptian magic. It will have a very, very strong capacity. I've seen cats who were carrying souls of Egyptian priestesses or priests that were using Atlantean magic. There's nothing easy in this reality. As well as your dogs. What breed are they of? What were they made for? Doberman, these kind of very predatorious killer dogs, guarding dogs, whatever. What were they meant for? What were they bred for? What were their original purpose? And do they have a soul, or are they just very used to be around humans, mimicking humans, duplicating humans, and in that processing and developing DNA for the greys to harvest? All of these things are for you to look for when you work with your animal. But also know that when you work with your animal who is around you, who loves you, who adores you, who looks up to you in all ways and forms, you are to take extremely good care of that animal. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't have an animal. You can't neglect your animal. You can't emotionally not give the animal what it needs, because it has an emotional field as well. And it suffers if you don't love it. It suffers if you're not around it. It suffers when it's at home alone. It suffers when it's left to itself all day long. A dog wants to be around its human. Cat's a little bit more kind of, it just want to come and go as it pleases. But my cat has always been around me. When I walked to school, my cat followed me and she sat at the end of her territory. And I was at school, and when I came home from school, she walked with me back. And she was around me all the time. Even when she had to make kittens. I remember that day so clearly because I was ending primary school, and that's 10th grade. I was 15. That's the Danish school system. It's different. We kind of have one school. You go to school when you are 7, and you end when you're 15, and it's the same school. There's no primary school, middle school, or whatever, or none of that. Same school. So you just go up the grades. And I was going to this kind of ending school party kind of thing, and she was what do you call it, birthing kittens, and she was running after me because she wanted me to be there. So I had to take the time. Got delayed for the party. I had to take the time, get her into her little nest she had built, and I had to calm her down again, this whole calming down, because she trusted me. She knew I would help her. She was literally crying out, this is the first time I'm making kittens and I don't know how to do this. So I calmed her down and I literally helped her by pushing on her stomach. That was ridiculous. But she needed me around to feel confident enough to give birth to the kittens. And afterwards she kind of, oh, that was a piece of cake. And she gave birth to three little brats. And they were very cute. But she did it and she mastered it. But she needed me to comfort her. She needed me to be there and support her and hold her little paw, so to speak, while she was doing it. So animals can go very, very close to us because they are living creatures. And emotionally, they are built up by the same emotional field we have. Organically, they're built up of the same organic material with more or less the same DNA sequences. A little bit different, but more or less the same structure. What differs is the way they process language, the way they process information. And their brains are developed in different ways. Not necessarily better or worse, because if I observed my dog when we were out walking and how she was smelling things, and I was amazed because she was using her emotional field, which is the vibration field, to, when she was smelling things, she saw colors. That was amazing. Smells came to her in colors. Vibration. Smell is vibration. It has different colors. So that expanded my capacity because I was able to see it. I was just amazed by this. Oh, this smells like that and that smells like this. Different vibration. And it did things to her brain. It sparked information into her brain. And it gave her a whole story about what she had smelled, the other dog, who the dog were, the breed. All these kind of things. There's a lot of stuff going on in a dog's brain. It's just dissimilar to what's going on in a human brain. The same with the cats. When they're out there hunting stuff, when they're out there doing whatever they're doing, when they're out at nighttime, what they are seeing of creatures, you should know, cats are brilliant at seeing the other world creatures and underworld stuff. So your cat knows if there's something in the living room, they see through dimensions, they see through the veil, they see through the deception. And that's why cats are sometimes also very difficult to get close to, because they can see who you are. They got a very fine reading capacity of your emotional field. They know if you're a shitty person. They don't want to be around you because why bother, right? So the cat is a little bit more discerning than the dog. The dog is just curious. It's just, if it's a good dog, it will just it just wants to smell, it just wants to experience, it just wants to be this little kind of happy thing with the tail kind of going. But that's dogs. And dogs are easier to be around because they've been around humans for so long time. Whereas cats, they have a different history. The prehistory goes back to Egypt. It's always Egypt, always Egypt. So they're kind of a different breed. So going with that one and ending with the whole kind of dog whisperer, which is a little bit funny because I have experience with that as well in Australia. I had an encounter with a dog who actually was possessed by a dark one. So it's not necessarily that our dogs are holding good souls. I am just saying that is something for you to detect as well, and then you need to work with it correctly. So why should we do this work? The collective consciousness field. The animals are in many ways or forms directing our emotional field as well, because as I said, we are built more or less of the same type of emotional field. So that means that whatever's going on in the animals are affecting the collective human field as well. So if we change that dynamic of animals and humans are different and animals have no emotions and we can treat them as we please because we don't give shit because they can't feel anything, because they can't word it. Of course they can feel pain. Seriously, it's organic form. What do you think? Of course they can. It's just this blocking out humans have. the way we treat the animals affect the collective human consciousness as well. It's not just through how we eat, it's also how we treat them, because we're made of the same type of matter and because our emotional fields are similar. So as in part of respecting life, we also begin working with animals in a way that is respectful. As I said, cow population, bug population, and bird population, and these kind of things. Be respectful, see their capacity. There's not much to work with the animals, the birds up here. Their brains are just kind of empty air. There's not really much going on there. But every bird I encountered in Australia, you can always telepathically communicate with them. As well as when I need to get this black swan off the street. I just needed to connect to it telepathically, and it understood what I wanted to do. And it felt confident that I knew what to do, because it got scared and confused and it didn't know what to do. So I had to control its brain waves to calm it down. It's all a matter of, do you trust yourself to be able to do this, and why you should do it. For the betterment of us all. The way you treat animals should be the same brilliant, kind, caring, understanding way as you treat humans. And again, as I said, it's very unfortunate when other life forms have attachments, because that alters the way you're around them, unfortunately. So that makes it more difficult. But this is also where you either size up and say, okay, I need to go into that battle and figure out how to clear this out. But be very mindful. The moment you begin that job, that's been my life, it grows. Everybody in all of the realities, they know who you are and what you can do. And that's also when I keep saying I'm being shitstormed and all these kind of things. It goes with that capacity. And everything on our planet now has to do either the progression work or going into the regressed worlds or let go altogether. And this is the big division that is happening now. It has been talked about for a very long time. And the animals around you, and my best guess is that if I open up for that party right now, shut it down, I haven't put it out in the collective field yet. But if I began that work, I'm promising you animals would come to me. They did that in Australia. The what do you call it? Cockroaches. I began working at some point. I worked with the winged bugs, and I was working with that, and I got that working well. So instead, the cockroaches, instead of running away from me, they ran towards me, because they wanted me to release their little souls, the little things that were attached to them. So they ran towards me, and I got a funny story with a very big cockroach, because it was, I'm not fond of cockroaches, but you kind of change behavior towards them when they run towards you and they want you to help them. So I was, again, that was in Coogee, and we had issues with spiders as well in Coogee. So we had this huge spider thing swarm coming in, and we had an exterminator coming out, and it put poison in different places. And then the day after, or was it perhaps I sprayed some up under the ceiling or something, I can't remember. But the day after, on the garbage can, which was a quite big one, on the lid of it was a cockroach. It was quite big, 5 centimeters or so, and it was on its back. They always die on its back. It's kind of very painful death. They kind of exhaust themselves to death, which is, that's so dishonoring. Anyways, all warriors are kind of, it's really dishonoring, actually. But it was lying there on its back with its cockroach paws in the air, and its big, whatever, antennas on its head, literally very dramatically folded out. So it's lying there, all of its greatness, and it literally, if it could raise up a little sign saying, "I'm dead," that was kind of very dramatic exit. Literally that little, all there lying there, "I am so dead." That's cockroaches. That they go with a bang, literally. So anyways, these are some of the stories of how we can work around. And as you do understand from what I'm saying, when it comes to bugs, I do not put them out there again, because the bugs that comes to me, they want to be released. And I help them with that. So unfortunately, I'm not the one that says preserve the bugs, keep them there, put them out in nature. You can do that if you feel comfortable with that, but not who I am and how I work with things, because things that are bugs now are either just electromagnetic distortion energies that have literally congregated itself into or aggregated itself into a bug form, which is now, that's why we have an emotional response to bugs, because they're typically made out of distortion energies from human emotional fields. But they can also hold soul fragments, and they can also be linked up to a hive mind structure. Or for instance, if you have a fourth dimensional from the artificial realities that used to be human, but now through the different kind of exploitation systems have been transformed into an ant, which is unfortunate in these hive mind worlds run by cubes. The cubes eventually takes over, and they discern what's the most efficient way of saving energies of these realities, and that is to create life forms that are energy preserving, and ants are very energy preserving. So a lot of humans have been turned into ants in the adjacent realities, which used to be human systems. So they have now become ants, and these fourth dimensional ants, if they can't attach themselves to humans, they can create a massive hive mind body inside our reality, and that is all the little ants. So when you're around, if you suddenly are swarmed by a lot of little ants, it's always because there's a fourth dimensional bigger ant that wants to be released. Wants to get out of that imprisonment it's in. Used to be a human, now it's ant. Not much honor in that, is there? So you help the releasing work in that. And since it's in a fourth dimension, it's partly holographic, and you can learn how to clean that out. Or it can show you how you work with genetically speaking, to clean it out. Anyways, I know how to do this, and this has been my work, and this is also why I am not in contact with humans at the moment, because of the bleed-throughs from these realities. I have done it, I've done it for 3 years, but now I need to focus on something else. And I have worked my way through my thousands and thousands and thousands of ants and their realities, and taking out these cubes and all that is there. And I do it very quickly. I have worked my way, both the white ants, the black ants, and the red ants. I work my way through the spider underworld levels. I work my way through the flying creatures. I work my way through the snake worlds, all of these kind of things. So I have worked my way through all of these realities as it is now in the adjacent ones. So energetically speaking, I'm on top of that. So that's also why I can now focus on something else. But humans still have these things attached to them, and this is where the advanced energy work videos will come in and teach you it, and teach you how to remove it. And I know in the advanced energy work videos are not in my most kind and caring level of working with these creatures, because unfortunately, if you have an ant in you, it's always hostile. They have turned into hostile warrior mentality. Just look at ants in nature. So that's also when I talk about bugs, there's not much love and compassion left in them. You have to alter it in them before it comes back. And then once it comes back, as with the cockroaches or the spiders or whatever, they literally cry out with their little spider hands and reaching out and say, please get me out of this form. Seriously, I used to be a human and now I'm a cockroach. Please. Of course you release it. And you take care of it. And you don't let the body wander around afterwards. I have tried that. It doesn't go more than 1 or 2 days. The cockroach dies on its own anyways. So you might as well just quickly. Cockroaches are very difficult to get rid of. They're very nasty. So I don't like killing them. So I usually just put them outside, and then they will perish within a day or two. They won't even leave from where I put them because the soul is gone. So they die quickly afterwards. That's bugs. But when it comes to spiders and mosquitoes, they're easy to take care of. Flies, I don't like to kill. I never did, and I never had to. I'm not doing it anymore because they have a lot of AI energy connected to the flies, have a lot of AI connected to them. So I'm literally just doing whatever I can to put them outside because I don't want to get imprints. By touching them, you get the imprint of whatever's there, or at least I do. So if I touch a fly, I connect very quickly to different types of AI cubes that are kind of coming from the future. So everything we got in our reality is an information system that links up to adjacent realities. That is the first new human perception you need to get. Nothing here is what it seems. It's just a matter of you have being downsized so you can't actually see what's going on. So lots of work to do. And if you are into this whole kind of why do you need to do this and why is that a good idea and how do you work with this, now you have listened through the video. So the next step for you is to go back, take your little notebook, paper, and you listen to this video again. First, you ask yourself a couple of questions, as in kind of, why is it important for me to treat other life forms differently? Don't put a value on it. Don't say I need to treat them good because that's a human value. You need to understand what a life form is and how you are around it appropriately. So the question is, how do I behave appropriately around my little house animal, if you have one of these? And you will then begin, write down what comes to you. And you will take it as a project, looking at your cat, looking at your dog, looking at your mouse, looking at whatever you have got within the walls of your house. If you're having a spider or a snake or whatever you have, they can all be worked with. And the question you need to ask yourself, why is that animal in my house? Why has that animal chosen me? Yeah, I went to the pet store and I bought it there. No, it chose you. Why has it chosen you? And you need to figure out that story, that narrative, because that dog, that cat, that snake, that spider, whatever you're having in your home has been waiting for you to wake up and understand. You need to help me. Your animal needs your help. So that's the first step. You put yourself onto that task. And some of you have children and some of you have spouses and some of you have a lot of stuff to do. But when we talk about changing the energy of respect for other life forms, again, animals are brilliant teachers in that. Because there is this little thing with animals. They don't have words. They don't have cloaking. They don't have deception. They are what they are, and they respond directly to what you are and how you treat them. They show it very easily if they're afraid of you. They show very easily if they love you. They show if you're grateful. And to go back to my own dogs, which I never gave goodies whenever they did what I wanted them to, if I needed to teach them something because it was easy for us. Again, a Cavalier is very easy. It literally mirrors you. It scans you very easily and it learns what you want it to do by repeating it. It's always about repetition, right? Organic form learned by repetition. Same with if you're training your body, whatever you're doing, it's all about repetition. But if my dogs did something, I really appreciate it. Because sometimes my little dog, she's not there anymore, but if she did something I would appreciate, she did something that made me happy, or she did as I asked her, or she came if I called her, or whatever, I would kiss her little forehead and I would say thank you. I would kiss her forehead. Her goodie was love. She got love for me when she responded in ways that were beneficial for both of us. Made it easier for both of us. She got love. My daughter as well. So this is not no goodies, no food. The whole kind of you need to get food to feel good. You need to get goodies which are food. You need to be brought up with food. If you do things right, you get food. Food system. We're living in a food and mating system. Let's change that. So that is something you can work with. So you write down the project of your cat or your dog or whatever you're having. And you'll learn to observe. You sit hours and look. You look at your dog, you look at your cat, you look at their behavior, get to know them, get acquainted. They're not just there to comfort you and make you feel good. They're a life form. How do you make that life for that animal as optimal as possible, as you do for yourself and your environment and your kids and whatever you're dealing with? And that's a whole other matter. That's a whole other story for another day. But I work a lot with our spouses and in our relationships in the whole material, so I've kind of covered grounds with that one. But here I'm talking about the animals. So you make it a project. But the important thing is you don't change things into something you want it to become. You change things into what they're supposed to be. And the most optimal version of what it's supposed to be. So in essence, if you do work with a cow, make it a brilliant cow. That is a fucking clever cow. If that's what is needed, because technically all a cow just wants is to have good surroundings and just walk around and eat and enjoy the sun and have lie down and poop and whatever it does. That's kind of what a cow does. But at least allow it to be there, and then work, energetically speaking, with the cow population, which would be a collective work. And then go in and free the cows from the enslavement they are technically under. So that would be a different type of work. So when we talk about the domesticated animals and the animals that we would have that are bigger, and the wild animals, the two last groups will involve something else, and that's on a collective level. But it goes in and it sets a tone in the collective field. So let us begin with the whole kind of, when we talk about animals, they are another life form. They have emotional fields like us. They are built out of the same organic matter. They respond to pain the same way we do. They respond to bad food the same way we do. They respond to bad energies the same we do. They respond to love, to hate, to fear. All of these emotional responses as humans have, they have as well. Their brains just work differently when they're processing information. And the best thing you can do is to learn your dog's brain, how it works, and then learn to communicate with it telepathically and see how far you can push it. Or just let it have a good dog life. And make sure it has got no attachments, it's got no snakes, it's got no technology, it's got nothing attached to it that makes it go into a dream state where it's producing genetics or whatever. It needs to be freed the same way as we're freeing ourselves. There's nothing here on this planet that hasn't got things attached to it to produce something. As I said, it's originally a purpose-driven reality, but what we've been changed into is the purpose of the regressed. And we need to change that in our local environment first. Ourselves, our surroundings, and what is close to us and trust us and willingly have given themselves over to us, which animals have. They are your responsibility. They are under your energy system. They are an extension of you. The same as kids are until a certain age. Thank you.